Welcome everybody to episode 48 of the Corner Blue. I'm Andres Rico and I'm sitting here with Hugo Alvarado and just want to thank you guys for taking the time and joining us yet again for this niche as F podcast on everything that's selecta in English. We just finished watching the Grenada selecta match, so we have all our analysis fresh in mind. So we're going to break down the match and the most recent of events that have been occurring surrounding La Selecta. But first of all, I want to give a shout out to all the new tennis fans, Salvadoran tennis fans out there today. It was a very, very positive and happy day with Marcelo Arevalo winning the men's doubles Roland Garros, the French Open today in Paris. I have to admit, I haven't been watching too many tennis matches throughout. Like, I love playing it for fun. I know that the Arevalo brothers have, for a long time, been, almost like the pioneers of the sport in El Salvador. Like, I remember, I think it was Rafa, if I'm not mistaken, that played Federer. Both brothers have been pushing the sport. Rafa took a step back. He was the older of the brothers and took a step back and worked in the Federation of Tennis in El Salvador. And Marcelo continued his career singles, and then he moved to doubles. So it's awesome to see him reach that feat, which, looking from the looks of it in El Salvador, many people are considering it like the top, sports feat in the history of El Salvador. So congrats, hats off to Chelo for the win.
I've been a tennis fan all my life.
Yeah, exactly.
All my life.
He has his raquetas hiding behind his.
I have my raquetas in that closet right there is full of raquetas.
Did you watch it?
I'm a scout for Salvadorian tennis players. No, I'm just joking. But yes, I mean it's a big deal for Salvadorian sports. Congratulations. It's interesting because it almost feels like they've been around forever.
Yeah.
Like I've been hearing about them for a long time, and it's always like they were so close, they were so close to winning something, and finally to win. It's a huge deal. And I was just remembering back in 2013 when we were in Turkey. Yeah. I remember that we were in the little van, the Dolmuş. What was the name? The Dolmuş, something like that. The little minivan, La Combi.
The Turkish coaster.
Yeah, the coaster. And we were there with a whole bunch of journalists and Don Gustavo Granito, who, as a lot of you know, the reason Granito was born in El Salvador is because Gustavo, his father, was coaching tennis in El Salvador. And I remember him talking about the Arevalo brothers. He was talking, are the Arevalo brothers still around? That was back in 2013. And he was saying how talented they were. And so, yeah, it's a big deal. It's an important moment for Salvadorian sports. Obviously, the sport doesn't have the same impact and the same following that soccer has, but still, I mean, it's it's one of those things where it didn't happen from one day to another. It's been a long process. The reason I'm talking about conversations about them being heard back in 2013 with Don Gustavo Granito, that tells you that it's been a long process and he's put a lot of work into it. So I hope that we don't get those people come out and say like, why aren't we doing this in soccer? And it's a journey. It's been a long journey for him, and he finally won. And yeah, I mean it's huge. Seems like it's been a good couple of weeks for Salvadorian athletes. Arevalo and a few weeks ago, Alpha.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she climbed the Mount Everest. That's another important achievement for Salvadorian sports. We had the guy who used to do the tiro al arco, who has also done important things. So yeah, It's important, and it's important for a lot of us who focus on soccer, but it's always good to acknowledge when other Salvadorian athletes achieve something big and put the name of El Salvador high up there in the world of sports. So very good for us and for him and for all of his hard work.
No, it was exciting to be able to watch like a tennis match like at a normal hour, like instead of having to watch like the Australian Open at a weird time, that type of thing. So it was definitely fun switching it up a little bit this morning and watching tennis rather than, the usual soccer. So yeah, hats off to him once again. And now we'll dive into the Grenada match. Nations League just started. It's a first page towards 2026 in a sense. Ooh, what's your opinion or what sensations do you have now that the match is over?
Well, happy that we got the 3 points. I think it was important to get the 3 points. I'm not very pleased with the way we got the results, but we got the result. That's always important. I think in part, I'm not too surprised. We're coming off a World Cup qualifier. So, playing in a semi-empty stadium, it kind of, the whole atmosphere, the whole energy doesn't feel quite the same. I'm sure that affects the players as well, but also for us as fans who are watching the game, it has a different taste to it, a different sensation. But again, the result is good. Let's not forget that Guatemala just lost against an island 2-0 a few days ago. And
Honduras scraped by a win yesterday as well, 1-0.
Exactly. So I think it's important. And I think we're just going to continue growing from here, which is what we need. So I'm happy for the 3 points. Happy with some things that I saw in the game, and I think some other players left a lot to be desired this time. But it happens, players don't always have a good game all the time. But we can dive deeper into it. But yeah, bottom line, I'm happy with the results.
And with the 3 points in this format, how is La Selecta looking in terms of qualifying directly to the Gold Cup?
Well, the first two teams from the Ligue A qualified to the Gold Cup. So
in the group, right?
Mm-hmm. Per group, yes. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, if we win the next game against Grenada, in Grenada, we're basically in, regardless of what we do against the U.S. So it's looking pretty good for us to be in the Gold Cup.
Good old Concacaf. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I don't really like this whole idea of the Nations League. I've mentioned it before. I was a huge fan of the UNCAF format back in the day, more than anything, because it was a small time frame to play the rest of our brother nations in Central America. And within 2-3 weeks, you have that all figured out of who was going to the Gold Cup. I think this type of tournament just kind of draws things out a little too much. And I know people are going to hate on me for saying this, but sometimes just when you have to play some of the smaller nations or the islands, you get this type of match. Whether you have a selecta that's prime tuned and everything's working, or you're just starting off a new, campaign or process. It's very rare that you'll see a top-notch, top-tier performance from the selecta against the Caribbean for various reasons. The level's gone up, for many of the smaller countries with recruiting from their respective diasporas. But at the same time, too, there's also that tendency of either the team adjusting or acomodándose down a couple notches because of the rival, that extra motivation or those nerves, that anxiety that comes with playing the marquee teams of the area is not present during these games. And to me, it's just a little overkill with the whole format change for qualifying to get to the octagonal and how El Salvador ended up playing all these extra games. Like a lot of them were just very cringeworthy, barely scraped out results. And this was just another example of that. I mean, props to Bonilla for getting the 2 goals. Um, but the mid just felt super disjointed. Sometimes I felt Bonilla, the same thing was happening where those passes in the box weren't accurate, or the centers, the crosses weren't accurate. But when he scored that second goal, that flick from Larin, that's the type of stuff that we need to see more often. And I think that gets lost a little bit when a selecta tries to play almost like a mechanized, more modern style of attack on the wings. I don't know. I miss those weird flicks that, picardia, the vivezas that sometimes get lost when we try and adapt our style a little too much in the outside rather than using, our identity in the sense of those touches, the give and goes, that type of stuff. Anything you want to add, Hugo?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that I was a fan of the UNCAF. I like having a tournament in one host country. It almost felt like a little World Cup type of thing.
Mundialito, yeah, no, I loved it. And bragging
and
rights. It's bragging
yeah,
rights too. And it's your brother nations and stuff. And just knowing that ever so often we all get together and duke
in
it
one
out.
country.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I miss those days when you could
yeah,
watch La
that was
Selecta, play 4 or 5 games within a week and a half, and then you have the Gold Cup.
right. Yeah, I missed that too. But I think that for teams in the lower leagues like League B, for and we were there just
Oh,
last year.
yes.
Um, there's the benefit of playing a lot of games. They play a lot more matches than us, and some of those teams don't get to play as much. We have the benefit to be able to play a lot of friendly matches in the United States, and some of those other islands don't have that opportunity. So getting those games in for them, it's important. But yes, I think what I like to see a little more, and I'm not saying that the guys aren't trying, but there is that extra motivation factor that we see when we play Mexico, when we play the U.S., when we play those higher teams. It seems like the team transforms. But that's not happening just to us. We see it with Mexico. With Mexico, they struggle in the area, and I mean, I know they just lost 3-0 against Uruguay, but when they play the World Cup, it's like they compete. They compete against some of the best teams in the world, and they do a pretty good job. So there's like an extra level of motivation that that we don't see in this Nations League against the Caribbean teams. And I almost wish, I wish that we was. I'm happy with the 3-1. I think it was a good result, but I almost, I would love to see us, not to disrespect those teams, but us really killing those teams, 5 goals, 6 goals, because for me, I like to see the team get to a level of mentality where they're going to try to win and score as many goals as possible, regardless of who they have in front of them. And as opposed to kind of adjusting and adapting to who they have in front. Like if they have a lower team, then we kind of see a team that does more like slower transitions as opposed to faster transitions and putting more pressure on top. The intensity. I think I would like to see. I would like to see higher intensity in games like the one tonight, so that when we play those higher competitive matches, we can play at that tempo.
But we're not asking the Anguilla 12-0 type score lines. It's more.
Yeah, we know that Grenada is not Anguilla. They're playing against an League A team because they're better than the rest. And And also, let's not, also, I don't want to like be overconfident or not acknowledge that they also have something to show. We saw that there were a few plays where their speed, our center backs looked like they looked slow, against them.
Or
So
they
if
got
you
behind the midfield and it took the midfield like way too many beats to try and recover and shut them down.
right, so if you get a little too loose and disorganized, we might suffer, and we don't want that either because we know how that's going to go down. So at the end of the day, getting the results is important. I like what Landaverde did. I think Landaverde is one of those players that has been consistent throughout the qualifiers, and since he started getting called to the national team, he's been a pretty consistent player all around. Tonight, I don't think that Enrico had his best game. Jairo didn't have his best game. Tamacas didn't have his best game. We didn't see much on the left side from Larin other than when Enrico had the ball there.
Or on the assist.
On the assist. Mm-hmm. Pineda is not the Pineda that we've known. It seems like he's still struggling to get his fitness. He doesn't.
I think this was more of a let's try and recuperate or see if we can get him going type thing. Because, him being a part of the starting 11 in other circumstances, I think would have been a stretch, especially when you have Santa Maria and how he's been doing the local league as well. Obviously, there's other candidates. You mentioned earlier you would have liked Molina or to see him. When it came to Chinchu, he did his thing. I really like, the pirouettes, the spins, getting the ball in transition. But I feel like defensively, he was getting caught on his heels, and I saw him getting knocked off the ball way too many times. And that's the thing that kind of worries me in the sense of our mid, where once he loses it and Chicho's nowhere to be found, and Narciso's nowhere to be found, like that's where things can get dicey.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I would an observation that I made on Granada's goal, which was a nice goal, by the way.
Good shot.
It was. Yes, we can say the whole play originated by Enrico losing the ball, but also Enrico gets the pass when he has like 3 or 4 players on top of him in a very complicated position. But if you look at the play, he loses the ball, but the ball goes to the back. All right. So to me, it's like you said, we lost the ball, but I didn't see us having players in the defense, in the holding mid, to put pressure on the rival. When the guy who scores the goal gets the ball, are the only person in front of him was the center back. No one else. So it's like,
it's a play we've seen way too many times with the Hugo Perez era, and I don't know. I have some questions in terms of the duo between Narciso and Landaverde. I mean, both of them great players. I respect Orellana, especially with how he's able to win the ball and position himself. But sometimes the play can be a little disjointed. And I don't see him as a two-way player. Like the brief moments that we've gotten to see Christian Martinez, he seems to be a little more of a two-way player, or Darwin, despite all his shortcomings and some of the issues that have come in the past. But something needs to be tied in there. Like we saw the Guatemala game and how that worked out. And then this game, fortunately, it was a lower tier, lower level team. But I don't know, man. I don't know if that's who I would go with, but I'm not a coach.
Yeah, we're not coaches, right? We just make our observations. That's what I say. I make observations because I respect the job that the coaches do. They see the day in, day out fans may say, so why is so not playing? Why is so not even being called up? And then when you have an opportunity to be with the coaching staff and you hear, hey, this player has been really not performing, not even in trainings for a while, right? You were like, oh, that makes sense. But just, from my perspective, there's a player like Cristian Martinez there who does give you more stability in that position, but he provides less in the attack. Narciso has a little bit more of the high pressure, the long passes. He risks more. Obviously, he leaves more spaces open sometimes, while Christian is more of a static player in that position, a player that combines with the center backs. He gets in between them. He helps when needed. He's a more physical player, so he, provides more muscle in that position. But, you have a Narciso who, we all know what he can do. He's a good player. Yeah. He's a very good player. He scores goals from long range. But yes, it is something that we definitely need to look at. How can we recover the ball when we lose the ball? Because it seems like somebody makes a mistake and it's almost like half a goal.
And there's been at least 4 or 5, goals like that throughout the Hugo Perez era. And, I think it's something that needs to be corrected. I think the mid just needs to be fine-tuned. That's our strength. That's where you have pretty decent players getting left off of the squad list, because that whole area is just, there's plenty of options. But I feel like games like this, the slower ones, the ones that don't have necessarily the best ebb and flow, just kind of reminds you of the game that Mayen had against Grenada last year, and having players like that are used to, I guess you could say the closest to Liga Mayor type match in a sense, that can handle that type of tempo and situation. But again, this team is being built not to deal necessarily with Grenada or having teams like that in mind. This is obviously long-term. You're looking at different options, who to fit in. But I have noticed that tendency of Hugo Perez favoring the Narciso Landaverde duo ever since he brought up Landaverde last fall. So we'll see how that evolves. To me, I don't know. To me, it's a point of not necessarily concern, but I'm seeing like this tendency where they just seem too isolated. And if one breaks down, that's it. Like you mentioned, Enrico didn't have his best of games today. I feel like there's certain moments where the mid's doing one thing that in comparison to what he would like it in terms of the routes, or when is he going to play a give and go, or when is he going to make that touch, the timing just seemed off. Like,
yeah, right.
Just even combining with Heido was like, you could sense they weren't, on the same page of when to make the run or when to make that touch through.
Yeah. I personally, I have no doubt of what Enrico is capable of doing. He's not a player that's going to do magic with the ball, but he's a player who can be very smart with the ball when he has the ball and he has the space. I think Xavi said, that for him, football is space and time. Xavi, el entrenador de Barcelona, that he sees football as space and time, right? Obviously, if you really think about it, that's kind of what it comes down to when you look at different leagues. You have a league like the Salvadorian League where there's a lot more spaces sometimes and time to think. And then you go to a higher tempo league like MLS, and then a player from the league over there is going to struggle here because they don't have the same time to think with the ball. Yeah, again, Enrico didn't have his best game, going back to Enrico, but there were also some plays where I saw him making the correct run, and he would get the pass. And we have seen that consistently. And unfortunately, sometimes he when he gets the ball, he doesn't have space or time or anyone to play the ball with. And obviously, that's also an opportunity for him to be prepared for that, because he also needs to be thinking ahead in terms of what he's going to do with the ball when he's being put in those situations. The style that we play tends to put players in those situations a lot. Center backs, defensive mids are in those situations because we want to play with the ball. We want to play from the back, and there's going to be those situations. But yes, I do agree that there's an opportunity for the talented players like Enrico and Jairo, the forward, whoever the forward is, to be able to combine better. Because they have the talent, they have it.
It's that last third, like we've been mentioning over and over again. And that's why that second goal to me was refreshing, because that's the type of stuff we need, is not improvising, but something that, is a little outside the box, or something that is just not so mechanical, or, like a robot could do. Just a timely flick, boom, street soccer. But yeah, no, again, we'll be wrapping up the game analysis shortly, but, great to see a win. Great to see Bonilla scoring. I'm glad that Macas wasn't, too hurt. I think, his fall might have influenced his performance a little bit, and we'll see who they bring on, what adjustments they make when they play Grenada away. And that is going to be on the
Tuesday.
7th. Yep. So that's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Should be broadcast here in the States, or you can hop on Facebook or Twitter and try and find a bootleg feed from Channel 4, El Canal Cuatro.
Or you have the channel, which I don't know if this happens to you, but this is so annoying. It happens to me quite often. I have TUDN. I have cable TV. And TUDN, out of all the channels, is the one that it's black. it's just, there's nothing. And I have the channel, and then the game's about to start, and I'm having to look on the app. And then if I go to the Spectrum app, I can see the channel there. But anyways,
not a sponsor yet. I think what happens is they have multiple channels. Like if there's multiple games going on at the same time, so you might have like an alternative TUDN channel that you're tuning to, not like the actual one. Or for some reason, SRL's game is on one of the alternative TUDNs. Because
are you just trying to get them as sponsors or what?
No,
I think they're having issues. I think they're having technical issues.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, we need sponsors where we can get them. So,
anyways, the app worked, so I got to watch the game in the app.
Oh man, that sucks.
Thanks to Jose Hernandez for sending a shout out. I heard that he did. Unfortunately, that's when my signal stopped and I could hear it.
Shout out to Don Gol.
To Don Gol. But I think a lot of the subs today were also rotation. I think Perez has that in mind, and it's smart. I don't think Enrico was necessarily sub because of his performance. He's had those, and then he kind of has turned it around. But also, he hasn't been playing at Vitesse, so it's smart to not give him 90 minutes, and then you have a player who's injured or something for the next game. So, I think the rotations were good.
They're all right. I mean, like the second half, I think was definitely the slower of the two. Not as much excitement, a lot of mistakes in terms of free kicks or the set pieces, centers, or Landaverde got a little too cheeky or like fancy with some of his touches in like the final third, where it's like, come on, man, like you want to get that through ball on the ground and make sure someone's wide open to hit it. Pineda also had that one where he just struck out at the plate. He just swung right through it. Poor man. Like, I feel bad for him. And you and I were talking about this during the game where, to reach the level that Pineda was at and to see him in that recovery process, it's a little cringeworthy, but hopefully, I think.
Yeah, because we're expecting that Pineda who used to be fast, who used to encarar on the 1v1s, and
Like
right now
a
he just
Salvadoran de Belen.
yeah.
I think the main thing is he's there. He got the call up. Just being there has to be a source of motivation.
Yeah.
Because I bet, if you're on the fringe or you have been a part of the national team and you're just watching it on social media or on TV, that has to, impact you a lot. So I think for him being there must be that breath of fresh air. And we've seen players recover themselves. Like they were able to recover Bonilla, for example, because Bonilla
Yeah.
had been gone from the national team for various reasons. He came back. He missed easy goals against really small teams in qualifying, and they stuck with them. And he got the brace today. So I think that's the positive aspect of the national team with Hugo Perez, is that they're looking at their options, keeping them open. But yeah, I think we'll close off the analysis of the game with that. I think that the key will be the midfield, and figuring out what to do in the absence of Roldan in a sense, because he was, one of those players that was always in the lineup with Hugo Perez since he took over almost a year ago. And because of the situation, prior to the Canada match, he released a statement mentioning, I'm still processing this, and I need to take some time before I come back. So whatever that means, it makes sense. You could see it coming, considering that the last window of qualifying, the coaching staff had said that he was injured with Sounders and this and that. So I looked up like the injured list that week. Roldan was not on. So I figured, okay, there's something going on. And, he has every right to deal with it in the way that he wants to. I mean, you shared the story along with many others today on Twitter of how Canada is going through something similar with their federation, where the players want the federation to show them the Canadian bucks, and it's not happening. So they decided not to train. They might skip another training, possibly a match. So they have, the land of the maple syrup has to figure out their stuff sometime soon. So they don't follow in our footsteps. They don't steal our limelight.
It's interesting, it's I've been thinking about the situation. I don't know all the details, but I've seen all sort of crazy things on the internet. It's so unfortunate that you can use social media for good and you can use it for bad. Like I saw a post from some Salvadorian named Paige saying the real reason Roldan didn't go was because the amount of money he was asking for playing the matches was just undoable for the federation, and that's not true. He's made it clear, and everyone knows there were some issues prior to that Canada game, and he wasn't happy with that, and he still hasn't completely gone over that, and it's understandable, and I think it should be respected. It's not. We're gonna start seeing more of that. It's a situation in which some of these players, like Roldan and Zabaleta, and I'm not throwing Zabaleta in the same bus. It's more of a combination, and the injuries. He hasn't been with the Galaxy in the last two matches due to injury, but some of these players are used to different situations. If you play in MLS, if you play in USL, if you play in NPSL and you get paid, you always get paid on time. It's like they don't mess around with your salary, with your money,
your bread.
You get paid whether they like you or not, whether they thought you were going to be a good player and you ended up being a bad player, but you signed for a year. They're going to pay you. They pay you. You get your paycheck every month. If they tell you they're going to pay you something, they give you that money. So that's how they grew up. They grew up under that system. And when, they go to Latin America, El Salvador, Guatemala, whatever, it's different. It's like they encounter situations in which they cannot even get paid electronically. And I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about like the Stephen Purdy days. I remember awards that they won for playing Gold Cup. Some money he was never paid. So I'm not, again, I'm not attacking the current federation because I don't know the details. But I know that some of these problems have been carried on from years past.
And it's not exclusive to, the foreign-born players. Like you've seen a ton of players having to take a stance. It happened with Brimi, where right when the qualifying round was going to start, Brimi had to go with a B-C squad, and go play in Azteca. And
and again, it's not it could be perceived as a foreign-based players thing, but it's not like some people want to twist it. It's not that they're doing it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
No, it could be perceived as a foreign-based player situation because their expectations, their upbringing is different than the players from El Salvador, born in El Salvador. The players born in El Salvador, it's harder to say no to a call-up because it could be their way out to a better situation in a different league. So,
well, it depends on what team they play for, because we have the situation.
But there's one or two teams. There's one or two teams where you don't have those issues, but the rest, it seems like a month-to-month issue. So there's a lot that could be improved. Again, one thing, I don't know if this has changed, but all the dealings being in cash. Again, going back to Stephen Purdy, I know that some money he didn't get because the check was over there. And then every time he would go over there, somehow they couldn't find the check or they forgot to give him the check and he was only able to cash the check over there. It's, crazy things that you're like, but I get paid on Zelle and PayPal and direct deposit from other countries, and you can do this. It's just like things that can easily be improved. But again, Roldan is a great player. I don't blame him. I think he has all the right to take his time to think about it, make a statement, however that might be, to try to do his best to improve on the situation that ultimately will benefit both the national-born and the foreign-born players. The thing that, is happening to Canada as well, but and for Canada, it's different. Canada is going to see something different, which is, hey, we qualify to a World Cup. We know that you're going to get a shitload of money, the federation, because used to be like, what, 3 million or 3 or 6 million, something along those lines of money that they get.
They just want to give them 10% of it or something.
Just for participating. So they're like, oh, there's money coming in. So obviously the players want their money. But something that I would love to see as I'm going to put myself as an outsider because I'm a scout. I don't receive a salary for the scouting work that I do. And
you don't?
I don't. And I'm not complaining. I just like to put it out there.
I'll complain for you. It's all good. I'll do all the complaining.
It's a reality that I'm accepting, and it's an honor to serve my country in the way that I do. But to me, the premios, if this was my company, right? Forget that it's soccer, but it's some competitive company where you get money based on achievements, performance, right? You get called up to the national team, you pull out a sheet, a PDF, whatever, you send it via email to all the players, via WhatsApp, however you want.
Screenshot,
TikTok, make a TikTok video, whatever you want. And you're clear and you're like, hey, here are the negotiated awards. If you get called up to the national team, you get $200 for getting called up per day. I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm not saying it should be that way. If they're talking about a turn, if we travel, then you get an extra $100 or $200 for viáticos. If we're playing a tournament, this is what you get. And if you qualify, this is what you get. And you have them sign it. It doesn't have to be a thing that you negotiate each time there is a competition. And to me, those are like the small steps that we can take to improve situations. I feel like there are so many little steps. I was, this is going longer, but there's a lot of things that have happened recently.
So
a few weeks ago.
Rants.
So like sounds, no, not a rant, but I was invited. Diego invited me to do a live Twitter live.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you how it went.
Yeah, and there were a few personalities of Salvadorian football. Some of those that seem to complain all the time. I'm not saying they don't have good ideas. They have good ideas. Faguaga. I'm sorry, I forget his last. Mm-hmm. Yes, him and Chalo Romero was the other one. I believe Chalo has, he's put up a whole plan. He has YouTube videos and everything. He's presented that to the federation, and I think they're great ideas. But in a country like El Salvador, trying to implement a like an entire plan, and you think, or you want, and your point of view is whether implement the whole thing or none, I think it's going to be very difficult. Given our history. It would be great if somebody could say, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. Las inferiores, todos los equipos tienen que tener, they need to have their reserves, and they need to have their U17s and their U15s. And this is the money that is going to be given to them. And this is how we're going to monitor that money. And we're going to train coaches to do this. And this is how the national team is going to play. This is how every team, it's great. It's ideal. But how likely is that to happen is very slim to none. So sometimes I think, like, what small steps can we take towards that?
Set up a fiscal cycle, like,
yeah,
whether it's a year or every 3 years. And as we've heard from people inside, it'd be ideal to have third parties negotiating that, and then you put it in the back burner and it's established, and then you don't have to be improvising or negotiating with people that you suck at negotiating with for one reason or another, and you don't have to deal with the shithousery, because wasn't it like a couple of days ago they had to renegotiate and published,
I don't know. See, and that's the other thing. There's media fishing for that. Somebody said, oh, TUDN just said that the players, and I said, where did you see that? And it wasn't TUDN, it was Los Ex did something. And I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of just ignore that, because I'm not. If I'm gonna try to get clicks from someone on my selected talent on this podcast, is gonna be because they really like what they're listening to, and it's real and it's genuine. I'm not making anything up just to get clicks, just to get an ad, whatever. But what small step can you take? And I'll give you some examples. I don't want to sound like Hugo Sanchez, where he only talks about himself, but I could be an example. If I had focused on all like the negative opinions and all the people who used to tell me nobody's going to listen to you, nobody cares, si esa selecta nadie la quiere ver ya, y cómo crees que los bichos de acá van a querer jugar allá, for 10 years, okay? If I had listened to that, I wouldn't have been able to achieve anything and be where I'm at right now. Not that but at least I'm able to help, and that's what I wanted, right? Or Diego Enriquez is another example. He it's not like the federation was looking for a director, sporting director. he came up with a plan. He showed it to the president, and he liked it, and he was given this opportunity, and he's leading this project because a lot of the things that are currently going on he created, but see, he didn't present like todos se tienen que ir de acá. Pues sí, aquí está mi plan porque si no se van todos. It's difficult. So sometimes you have to make a small step. Example, and I had this thought for a while, and I think Hugo Perez just said this a few weeks ago when the problems were happening with the league. There's always problems with the league, financial problems, with players not getting paid. They're a month behind. It has turned into being 2 months behind. It's like, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. It's like, okay, it's 3 months. All right, 3 months. It's time to go to the federation. No, it should be, everybody should get paid on time, So
Quincena.
Or quincena. So what would be one small step that probably a lot of the current players wouldn't like? But if you follow the American model at a lower scale, because we don't have the same money in El Salvador that we have here. But if you set up a cap, okay, players 1 through 10 in your roster get $1,000 per month. I don't know how much players make. I've heard of players making as much as 12 grand per month, and players making $500 per month in El Salvador. That's what I heard. So I don't really know. But just to give an example, you say, okay, you find your sponsors. You don't have to depend on La Taquilla. You have sponsorship. And every team commits to having rosters 1 through 10, $1,000 per month. 11 to 15, I don't know, $2,000 per month. But the cap is $2,500 per month in salaries. And you get to bring 2 foreign players where you can pay them up to $5,000 per month. And as someone who has previously worked as an agent, I can tell you that, things have changed now, but 5 years ago, getting $5,000 per month here in the States was hard to get. An MLS team will give you that. But it wasn't like a given. There were players making $40,000 per year, $43,000 per year, 3 years in MLS, playing 3 years in MLS. So $5,000 per month, you can bring some pretty good quality foreigners. So, but what would that do? That will help you at least plan and know how much money you need, how much cash flow you need to keep your team going. You won't have that huge gap between the player making 12 grand and then the player making 500. But at least you see, and take whatever extra money you have to improve on the infrastructure and give the players medical insurance, give the players a retirement plan. Because if players are well taken care of, but they know up front that the cap is $2,500, some won't like it, especially the ones who are used to earning more. There will have to be a way to work with that. But I think the one small step that could be taken at the league level is to set a cap. Because teams have financial problems every year.
Yeah.
So there's a reason they are committing to paying more than what they actually have.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're thinking, we're going to get a certain amount of fans and then we're going to get money from there.
It doesn't happen.
It shouldn't be that way. So So when I talk about small steps, yes, I think that a lot needs to be fixed. But I think there are small steps that could be taken to at least start moving towards having a better infrastructure.
Informality of negotiating. It seems like every couple of months or every call up, and then having to get those numbers published, and it just doesn't look good for all the parties involved, especially when you start looking at the numbers. And yeah, anyway, I think we're gonna end Selecta Talents Masterclass for today. Thanks again for tuning in to the Corner Blue. You can catch us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We put our videos out on YouTube. You can catch the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We would like to appreciate all the new people that have joined us within the last couple of weeks. We published a couple clips, one from the Javi Mayona interview, along with our first guest ever, Pablo Puñeden. We were able to get some subtitles in Spanish, and that opened a new audience for us in a sense. So if you're new to the podcast and that's how you found us, welcome and thanks for tuning in. And to everybody, thanks for sharing, liking, commenting, hitting us up post pre-match. We always enjoy talking to all of y'all. So thanks once again, and I think we'll try and join up. I'd say, what you think, post US match on the 14th, or would you like to do something earlier?
We'll see if we can get a guest earlier, but definitely post US match after.
So we'll get some coverage going leading up to that match, because I think it is something important. It's not a friendly, it's not a qualifier. It's kind of in the middle, because we might have already have qualified to the Gold Cup by the time we play them. But it is, a marquee opponent, and it will be interesting to see who Berhalter takes on his trip down to Cusca. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Corner Blue, and have a great one. Bye.